Somebody over here said they're going to sleep, so they're not going to help editing. I want to sleep, but I guess I'll edit this video for you. He's so lazy. I told him this is our channel, and yet he does nothing. He just gets on camera and looks cute. That's not enough. That's unacceptable.
Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and today I want to talk about some of the latest nonfiction books that I've read. So I mentioned in my wrap up for January that I was going to separate out nonfiction books. So going forward, I'll wait till I have at least 3 or 4 nonfiction books and do a separate wrap up, just because I think if I included them in my regular wrap up, it would be longer than I would like. So I'm just going to do them separately. So I'm going to go from the book I enjoyed the least to the one I enjoyed the most. So my least favorite was Big Friendship, How We Keep Each Other Close by Aminatou Sow and Anne Friedman. Is there such thing as spoilers for nonfiction? If so, it's kind of spoilers because I do talk about specific things that happened in the book, but is that a spoiler? So here is what I did wrong. I only read Big Friendship and I heard about it from a few people. That's what I heard it called. I didn't look any further into it, borrowed it from the library, and I did not pay attention to the how we keep each other close, which I think is very important, because I think if you go into this with the right mindset and maybe you're the right people, you can really enjoy this one. But I really didn't look much into it, which I do for a lot of books, but in this case, that definitely hurt me rather than helped me. So Big Friendship is written by Aminatou and Anne, who are friends in real life. And here's what I did not know before. They actually do a podcast together. And so people who are fans of the podcast and fans of them in general, I think would enjoy this book way more. So when I heard Big Friendship, I heard a brief review about it, that it was about 2 women, who are adult in their 30s, I believe. And one is black, one is white. So it was them navigating their friendship over the years, over distance, and, handling an interracial relationship. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was more a general book about friendship and not really a self-help book, but just like a book about friendships and talking about their importance and how, they're kind of played down sometimes as less important than romantic relationships, and that they would add in their anecdotes like about their friendship. That's how I imagined it going into it, but it's the opposite. So obviously, like the book said, how we keep each other close. This book is very much about Aminatou and Anne's friendship, the things they've gone through, how they got through it, and then small tidbits of general friendship advice, kind of. So what I did not like was that the overarching story was focused on their friendship because, and this is not to be mean, I don't have any interest in them. I didn't know who they were before. After reading this, I don't have any interest in listening to their podcast. They just don't seem like people for me. That just in personality wise and topics they cover and things they like and their voices. And that's fine because everyone doesn't like everybody. So had I known that before, like had I given their podcast a try and then saw that they were putting out a book, I wouldn't have read it. It also, for it to be very much centered on their friendship, because I believe it starts like right after college. They're trying to find, like their first job and stuff like that. So they're young. And, now it's a present day when they're older. So the story starts out telling you that later on in life, they were having issues where they weren't addressing things in their friendship, but people still thought they were the best of friends and how they had to work through that. And then it starts back at the beginning of their story. So you're like, ooh, it's going to build up to, something serious and we're going to really get down and dirty. But it doesn't. So for it to be focused on their friendship, I feel like it's still very surface level. Like they would start to talk about certain events that happened, misunderstandings or what have you that happen in friendships. And they would start to get into it, but then they would edit out certain things or redact certain things, really just skim the surface and not get deep down into it. Not which they don't have to air all their dirty laundry, but I was like, if you're writing this book to help people, feel more confident in their friendships, navigate their friendships over time and over distance, this isn't helping because you're just really giving them a little synopsis like, yeah, we had issues but it's fine now. We fixed it. So I feel like there's a fine line, like not airing all your dirty laundry, but also giving the reader something. And they just really didn't give a lot. I don't know if any of that made sense, but there's just a certain book I was looking for and this was not it. Also, Some of it, and this is also a personal thing, to me came off as very pretentious. So they met in DC, but then Anne moved to Texas, and then I think she got like this big time job offer for like a 6-figure salary in Los Angeles, and she moved there. Then Aminatu later got one in San Francisco and moved there. So not to be like anti-feminist or anything, because I want women to get the money they deserve. I want people to be paid what they deserve and more. I feel weird about saying how much money you make in this story, where at first you were being really relatable because you got out of college, you were struggling, you're working these little menial jobs that you didn't go to school for, or you did go to school for, but it's very entry level. And then that was relatable. And then it was like you jumped to this big figure salary, which they tell you exactly how much they made. And then when Aminatu got her job in San Francisco, I'm pretty sure it was something like $170,000? It was something ridiculous. And they mentioned it as, if I take this job, I'll finally have a chance at financial stability. Now, I know that California in general is expensive. I know that San Francisco is ridiculously expensive, but she was a single person. So, I don't know the details of the job, if she had to live in the city, whatever, but I was like, a chance at financial stability? I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way and just came off really pretentious. So that was my feeling. I didn't like their voice, like literally how their voice sounds, because that's just me. I also found it was weird because they narrated the audiobook, but they would flip between talking about themselves in the first person and also the third person, and then also talking about the other person in the third person, but then going into the first person plural and saying we. So it was very confusing because it would be like I, and then talking about Anne, but Anne is talking about Anne. I just thought that was really choppy and weird. And because they have a podcast, they also added in clips from people that they were referencing in their book. So if they talked to a sociologist or a therapist or whatever, they interviewed them and they inserted that clip into the book, and it did not work for me. It just felt weird, and I don't know, I didn't like it. Again, those are personal things. There were a few things that I did like when they talk about more general things about friendship. There were a couple of things where they briefly addressed race and how that played into their friendship. That was great, but for the most part, it just wasn't for me. So I think who this is for the most part, I think it is for people who are fans of them and their friendship, and you just want to learn a little bit more that maybe they don't talk about on the podcast. I haven't listened, so I'm not sure. Also, I was reading other people's reviews, and there were some people who were fans of the podcast who also didn't enjoy the book, but I saw that more people who did enjoy it happened to be fans of theirs. But a review, it was a 2-star review, and I feel like it really just summarizes my feelings. So they said, this book is like when two nice people at a party won't stop talking to you and your eyes glaze over and you just check out and internally plot how to politely extricate yourself so you can go find the host's dog to pet. And that's how I feel. So again, take that with a grain of salt, because a lot of it was personal preferences and how things bothered me, but you may enjoy it. But that just was not for me, and I don't care for anything else from those two. But great for them. So then next I read Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit by Mary Frances Winters. So this is obviously a nonfiction book about Black fatigue, which I am very familiar with. And so I will say that this book is not specifically catered to or for Black people, because these are our experiences for the most part, although it could be helpful to Black people outside of America because the story is really focused on racism and Black fatigue in America. So I think it would be more helpful and people would learn more from it if they were not Black, or if they were Black and living outside of the United States and wanted more of an idea of how it is to be Black in the US. So Mary Frances Winters, she runs her own like diversity and inclusion group, the Winters Group. She was working in that field in corporate America, but was realizing that the companies weren't really letting her do what she wanted to, and they were really just having her there to say, yeah, we've got somebody working on diversity and inclusion. So she started her own business. And so she talks about her life and how being Black has affected her, her children, her career, all these things, and then about people in general. So this definitely is a wider scoped book. I will say for the most part, I really liked it. Even though it wasn't a lot of new information, it was just very much like confirmation, like, because sometimes you just feel exhausted just from being Black. And this was just like, yes, okay, it's not just me. Like, I knew it wasn't just me, but just hearing it, you're like, it's not just me. And I liked the stories she shared, her personal tidbits. For instance, they faced discrimination when they tried to get their daughter, who was like 11, a dog. And then the breeder found out they were Black and didn't want to give her a dog. And she's like, how do you tell an 11-year-old you can't get the dog you want for your birthday because you're Black? And she also talks about how her son, who is super smart, and I think both her kids like went on to like really great universities and doctorates and do all this fancy smart people stuff. So he's super smart, but he wasn't performing well in school. He wasn't enjoying school. He would like put his head down in school, and he for years had white teachers who just thought it was him doing this on purpose. He was misbehaving. And that when he finally had a teacher who really took time to see like what was bothering him, and I can't remember exactly what it was, and they found it wasn't anything like mentally or anything with, you know, his mind. It was just he had a different learning style, and he, you know, was a very, I think, like shy, anxious kid. So just stuff like that. Not like it's only happens to Black children, but just little anecdotes like that, and you just see how racism plays into so many different areas in people's lives. And one thing, I won't say this is a negative, it's just something I wanted her to explore more, but I don't think that's her area. So she tells you in the story that her husband died. I think she's not that old, so I think he died early, and I think it was a heart attack. And so she theorizes that there's a correlation between health and racism. And so I thought that was really interesting, but she didn't really go into that. And again, I don't think that's her field. So I want to find a book about that or a study and see if there is any proof that there's definitely a correlation between being affected by racism and negative health, because it would just be interesting to read about that. So yeah, she hinted at that, and I was like, dang, I want more, but that's not really her thing. And she was speaking more generally on just racism in general. So I think it is a good read, and I already said who I think it would be for. I listened to the audiobook as I do my nonfiction. The only thing I did say was she uses the phrase Black fatigue a lot, and not to be, you know, a smartass, but I was getting fatigued of hearing the phrase Black fatigue. But that's just me. Anyway, I think it's worth reading, and it's relatively short too, so it would be a quick one to get through. And finally, my favorite, I read Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America by Ibram X. Kendi. Oh my goodness. I say favorite, although I spent most of this book in a rage. So Stamped from the Beginning should be in all schools. It should be required reading because it's amazing. So it, like it says, Stamped from the Beginning, so it's starting before America's even officially founded. In the story, he breaks the book up into 5 sections following 5 people who are prominent during their time. So it starts in like the late 1600s with Cotton Mather, who was a Puritan minister. And then it goes to Thomas Jefferson, William Lloyd Garrison, W.E.B. Du Bois, and then Angela Davis. And so much I did not know I learned from this book. So many things that the American public school system taught us that are not true, or they spun the story in a different way. Just so much information. Obviously, I had never heard of Cotton Mather before. That family has some really interesting names. I think either his like mother or grandmother or grandparent was named Increase Mather. Anyway, so it starts in the late 1600s and talking about this Puritan minister and the people around him, and, you know, the ideas that have basically come over from England. And so much of this story that was surprising to me was so much stuff you hear today, so many racist ideas, how old they were. Like, I obviously knew they weren't brand new, but I didn't know how far they go back. Like the the sexualization of Black women and Black people in general, just assuming that they're more sexual because of who they are. Another one was the idea that Black people are lazy, which I think is so funny since Black people are literally doing all the work for white people. And one thing that came up in here, but they're talking about after slavery was over and people how wanted money and land and things to, you know, be able to start a life. And they were saying like, we don't want to give handouts or anything. Like, you didn't really deserve that. And he makes a comparison in the book as if your wealth didn't come from it being handed down to you from family members. And it's just like, oh my God, it just goes back so far, so much how Black people are lazy, that they were so busy taking care of their slave masters that they don't know how to take care of themselves. How does that make any sense? They were taking care of your fields, they were taking care of your house, they were taking care of you and your children and their own families, but yet they're too lazy. They can't take care of themselves. So this is just, like I said, infuriating, but I didn't know just how far back these racist ideas went. And he does a great job going through all of it. I will say sometimes it can be dense because he's covering such a long time period, but it's so important. And the audiobook is phenomenal. And I just think it's just really talking about things that the American system loves to just paint as things were better than they were, especially around like Abraham Lincoln and just things like that. And you're like, yeah, well, you know, he didn't free everybody and he really wasn't doing that because he cared about Black people. It was for his own political gain. So, oh, so much. And I thought the section on W.E.B. Du Bois was really interesting too. Like, I've always known who he is, but just learning more about him and his different struggles and ideas throughout his life, I thought was really interesting. And then obviously Angela Davis, I knew learning more about her and the things that she went through and fights for now. I know there also is like a young adult version of Stamped that is Ibram X. Kendi and Jason Reynolds. So I actually want to read that one or listen to the audiobook because I think Jason Reynolds narrates it. But I think, again, this is something everyone should read. It should be required reading. It's just, oh my God. There's a lot of information in there and it will piss you off, but I think it's necessary. So go get it. But those were my most recent nonfiction reads. I actually did finish one this month, but I'm going to wait and talk about that one later because I'm processing like that one. Oh, I'm actually taking a break right now because that one just really got my blood pressure up. But anywho, it's so funny. For the longest time I was like, I'm not reading nonfiction. Nonfiction is so boring. And I think there can be ones that are boring or maybe not interesting to me. But what I have learned is that I love listening to them on audio, and you just have to find the right nonfiction. There's memoirs. There's obviously happy nonfiction out there. I just got to find it. But I'm just loving these that are also teaching me, because I have a tendency to get on a kick. Like, I want to learn about something and then I just like go down these Google rabbit holes. And I feel like listening to audiobooks on like a specific title, someone's like put all the ideas into one place for me, is way easier. And so I have so many more that I want to read, and I'm just happy and proud of myself for finally branching out and reading more than like a memoir here and there, because I've learned so much. And while it has made me so angry, I still think I'm better for it now that I have this knowledge and I can spread that to other people. I can recommend these books to other people, so I'm really excited. Anyway, that is it for this video. If you've read any great nonfiction books lately, no matter the subject, would you let me know down below so I could check them out, add it to my never-ending list. But I thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you give it a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Check out my description box for links to these books, information on how to support my channel, things that are going on around in the world, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.